Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Card Combo Show with me, Chocobilly, where we look at weird and wonderful combos in the TCG. Let's get to it. Okay, so the cards we're going to be looking at this week are the newly spoiled Tenzen from Final Fantasy XI, Ritz, Pugilist from Opus 4, Morrow, and Black Waltz 3. Okay, so first and foremost, Tenzen. So here's a 6 CP 9k forward. He's got Brave, and with the text, at the end of each of your turns, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Add one Job Samurai or one card name Samurai among them to your hand, and return the other cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. When Tenzen leaves the field, choose one Job Samurai or card name Samurai of cost 3 or less in your break zone, add it to your hand. So first and foremost, this card is great because he's got a leave the field effect. Leave the field is good no matter what, because if it gets broken, if he's removed from the game, if he is just put into the break zone, it's always in effect. He's left the field, therefore his effect happens. So that's really, really cool. He's also obviously great for samurais as well. More samurai supporters welcome. I love samurais, so it's good fun. The fact that he has a lot more, like the longer he's on the field, the more he kind of gains value. So he's a great card. So combos. Star Sybil. He is a Final Fantasy XI card, so he can be searched from Star Sybil, and Star Sybil can break to play onto the field as well, so even more value. Now Cyan and Hien, obviously they're samurais, so it works well, but Tenzen can also get you Cyan back from the break zone using his ability, which is great, but with Cyan and Hien it means that your forwards, you can slowly regain your forwards to move to the break zone or to slowly gain from your deck at the end of every turn, and Hien means that your forwards, when they attack, or when your samurais attack, they just become huge when they attack, and Cyan, similarly, the more samurais you have, the more damage they'll deal on attack. So Cyan and Hien together is crazy. And if you've got Tenzen there as well, obviously if you've got 3 forwards already, you're doing pretty well. But with Tenzen there as well, just adding to the constantly getting more and more samurais to your hand, that's awesome. Okay, so Volker. When Volker or Category 11 forward enters the field, choose one forward, it cannot block this turn. So obviously samurais are pretty offensive on the attack already, but if you then play something like Tenzen with Volker there, it then means your opponent can't block as well, which is pretty cool. Rampair. So Fire's got quite a few different ways of breaking backups anyway. Lulu and Firion are the first that come to mind, but yeah, you put Rampair into the break zone to play Tenzen onto the field. Even then, if you end your turn and get another samurai to hand, that's so much value, so good. Une. So any real kind of flicker effect would work for this, or even something like a Leviathan bouncing Tenzen back to your hand. It's great because if he leaves the field, you get to get a samurai of cost 3 or less from your break zone back to your hand. If you just cast like a little 1-cost summon, maybe something like Belias for 1 CP, you just cast that, you get a card from the Belias as well, but then if you use Une to flicker Tenzen, you then get another samurai from your break zone. If your opponent keeps on breaking your Cyan because they don't like it, just keep on getting them back. It's great. And Zac. So this is a kind of a funny little combo. So Zac has, at the end of each of your turns, choose one forward your opponent controls, discard one card from your hand. If you do so, deal it 5,000 damage. So you can stack Tenzen and Zac's ability in a particular order to get the effect you want. So say you actually want to use Zac's effects, what you can do is stack Zac first, then Tenzen. Hopefully Tenzen will find you a card from the 5 cards he reveals. You can then use that card to discard for Zac's ability, and on the flip side, if you have got Zac on the field and you don't have any cards in hand but you don't want Tenzen's card to be wasted, you stack it so Zac would resolve first, and then you get the card from Tenzen, which gives you another card in hand. Okay, so Ritz, highly playable. I mean, she's used quite a bit in the meta anyway, but she's also just very strong. The fact that she's 3 CP and 7k, so she's on curve, but then got all these additional abilities as well, is crazy. So if you control a category FFTA forward other than Ritz gains 1000 power and haste. That's pretty good already. When Ritz attacks, choose up to 3 backups you control, activate them. That's pretty crazy. And then damage 3, Ritz cannot be blocked. That's just nuts. So yeah, great card she works with. No, if you can attack with Ritz even once, with Nono on the field, you're reactivating 4 backups, she has regained you so much value already. Now, the cool thing about No-No as well is that you can use Ritz's ability to reactivate 3 backups. You can then use those backups, and then use No-No to reactivate another one of those backups. So you can reactivate the same backup twice with this. Now, going further down the rabbit hole, Alhanlam and Chalinka. So let's say you've also got Yuri on the field as well. You play Chalinka so that Ritz can then attack twice. And No-No on the field as well, maybe. You attack with Ritz. You reactivate Alhanlam. Use Alhanlam's ability. Hopefully they'll 2k to your opponent's board. Then you reactivate him. Do it again. If you've got No-No, reactivate Alhanlam. Do it again. And then you attack a second time with Ritz. Reactivate Alhanlam. Do it again. Use No-No's reactivation. Do it again! So you get a total of 4 Alhanlam reactivations. And if you, I mean, that's without including any damage increase. So if you've got something like Manasvin Warmech or the Summoner or Palom, where it will increase the damage dealt to your forwards, that's just crazy. I mean, it's already 2k damage dealt, and the fact that you can do it to all your opponent's forwards as well, having Chalinka and Alhanlam, or having the backup Chalinka now, makes Alhanlam so much more playable because you've always got that 2k ping on board, unless your opponent breaks either of the two. But yeah, really, really good with something like Ritz. Edward, so he's barely ever played. I really enjoy the card though. Just before Opus 11 came out, actually, I had him in a deck similar to this, which Ritz would fit perfectly. So, obviously, it costs an ice and a colourless and a dull for Edward, make your opponent discard. So you could use Edward's ability, attack with Ritz, reactivate those 2 backups and Edward, do it again. If you've got No-No on the field, then you can reactivate Edward, use the other 2 backups if you've got 5 backups, and do it again. If you've got Chalinka on the field and you've made Ritz attack twice, you can do it a couple more times. Obviously, you'll have to start discarding from hand to be able to use Edward's ability, but if you can just empty your opponent's hand from 2 attacks with Ritz, it might be worth it. Guido. So again, this card never, even when it came out, I didn't really get played. But the reason I like Guido with Ritz is the fact that Ritz cannot be blocked. So you attack with Ritz, it makes all your, or you can reactivate 3 backups, one of which would be Guido. You then use Guido's ability. If your opponent has got a forward of cost 5 or more, put on top of their deck. Now, when this card came out, there weren't a huge amount of 5 cost forwards or more being played. Now there are a lot more, definitely. So being able to put it on top of your opponent's deck, and then Ritz can't be blocked. So if they can't stop Ritz's damage going through or stop Guido's ability from happening, or draw that forward to hand, that forward is going to become the exponent damage. Now the reason that's good is because there is currently no way to retrieve anything from damage zone. Once it has been taken as damage, it's gone. So obviously you want to be careful that you don't want to put a forward to the top of their deck which has got an EX burst as well. That would kind of suck, but either way it's a good way of making sure that forward is gone. Sarah, so kind of capitalizing on the reactivation on attacks here, but you attack with Sarah, so you've got a full backup lineup of Moogles. You attack with Sarah, you reactivate them all, do something. Then you attack with Ritz, reactivate 3 more. If you've got No-No, who is a Moogle, you get to do even more reactivation. It's just crazy. Obviously, Ice doesn't ever really focus too much on reactivation, but with Sarah, it just works so well. And Fiona. So yeah, obviously this would be better with No-No as well, because she costs 4 CP for her ability. But if you can use Fiona even once without having, like, making her ability effectively cheaper, is very useful. Being able to get the card you need is an understated effect, I believe, because the amount of times I've lost a game where I just didn't find that one card I needed to be able to either pull it back or win me the game. So yeah, it's good with Fiona. Alright, next is Pugilist. So yeah, he's a middling card, but I love standard units. I've always enjoyed these kind of tribal decks. So for each job standard unit forward other than Pugilist you control, Pugilist gains 2,000 power. So if you've got 3 Pugilists down, they become 11k forwards. It's pretty fun. Warrior Light obviously gives them plus 2,000 power, and First Strike means that they can grow large quick, but First Strike makes them very dominating. Gareth, so maybe you're going for a mono earth tribal standard units deck. Gareth, if you control 5 or more earth characters, Gareth gains 2,000 power. So he becomes just a 10k, even if you're on mono earth. Just having the backup lineup is easy enough to get Gareth that big, but then that happening to make Pugilist even bigger, that's awesome. Dark Knight. So when Dark Knight enters the field, it can make Pugilist bigger through its own effect, but also Dark Knight, if say you've got 3 points of damage, can also add an additional 3k to the Pugilist. Ranger. So obviously, Pugilist, if it gets too big, is probably going to get taken out, but you also want to have some protection for the forwards, making it large as well. So Ranger, the fact that it can't be chosen by abilities, means that it can be quite awkward for your opponent to have to deal with. And Wind wouldn't be a bad matchup for a standard unit deck, given the fact they've got things like Arc and the other Warrior of Light to be able to get more value for your forwards, your standard unit forwards anyway. Sid Garland, so Pugilist is a Final Fantasy XIV character, so you can use Sid Garland's Dull and Break ability to just get that Pugilist back to your hand. And then it allows you to play another Sid Garland as well, which if you're on Mono Earth is definitely worth it. And Thancred. Dull, choose one attacking category 14 forward you control against first strike till end of the turn. So I said before, Pugilist getting massive is a great ability, but being able to give it first strike as well, yeah, that's awesome. Obviously it's only when it's attacking, so it's not as good as it would seem like to be able to block with, but either way, if you can swarm the field with your Pugilists and other standard units, you're doing well. There are also some 14 Dragoons as well, so maybe you go for like a standard unit Dragoon Pugilist Earth deck thing. And Refia, so a game that I recently had using Glorka really sold me how important it is to be able to bring down the value of some of the cards you're playing. If you can make Pugilist cost 1 CP and play just 3 of them onto the field in one fell swoop, that's crazy. That's 3 11k forwards you've just paid for 1 CP. Cool. Alright, so now we've got Morrow again from Opus 11, damage 3, Morrow gains plus 2000 power and haste, pretty good. And then damage 6, Morrow gains plus 2000 power, and when the forward damaged by Morrow is put from the field into the break zone on the same turn, activate Morrow. Morrow can attack once more this turn. So he's a little 2 CP, 5k, so he's a little underpowered, but he can quickly gain that power. So something like Glaive. Now one of the weird things about Morrow is he's technically from Final Fantasy Legends 2, and Glaive is from Final Fantasy Legends 1, and I haven't played either of them to completion, but I'm pretty sure the characters do not mix from each game. So why they're like that, I could not tell you. And I also think, at least in the UK, they are called Final Fantasy Dimensions, not Final Fantasy Legends. So that's another bit of confusion there as well. But either way, Glaive buffs all your FFL characters by 2000, which includes Morrow, and Morrow gaining plus 2000 and haste as well on 3 damage. If you just play, say you had Glaive on the field, you're on 3 damage, just play Morrow for a little 2 CP, and away he goes as a 9k haste for 2 CP. Similar sort of thing with Diana as well. Diana can get you an FFL character back from your break zone, that being Morrow. You can then play Morrow as well, because he's got haste. And she can also buff your Morrow as well, who can get bigger on his own, but, you know, your plus 2000 isn't bad. So Phoenix and Dataluma. So obviously this Phoenix is really good because of the fact that it brings the forward onto the field standing up. So unlike with the 7 CP Phoenix, which specifically brings them in dull, this guy brings them in and they're ready to go. So something like Morrow, if it's haste, so you've just attacked with your only forward, but you don't leave your attack phase, you cast Phoenix to bring in Morrow and attack again. That's awesome. But also something like Dataluma, so maybe you've got your little Morrow down there, he's attacked already, your opponent's blocked him, but unfortunately Morrow's going to die. You can then maybe cast your Phoenix to bring Dataluma in. Dataluma will deal you a point of damage, maybe it'll be your 6th point of damage, to then give Morrow plus 2000 power, which will be really cool. Now you'll have dealt 2000 damage to your opponent with the Phoenix, then you'll have increased Morrow's power as well, and if Morrow does survive, he also gets to attack again, so it's a fun little party trick. Hecatoncheir, so your opponent doesn't want Morrow attacking more than once, so they just let the attack through. You then cast Hecatoncheir, Morrow breaks something because he has the source of damage as stated by Hecatoncheir, and he can attack him again, provided you're on 6 damage, but fun. And Jekt, so obviously with a card like Morrow maybe and Dataluma, you're going to be having that kind of masochistic, I'm going to hurt myself kind of deck, so you're just piling on the points of damage to yourself, so Jekt can then become quite cheap and also deal your opponent a point of damage, and then if your opponent then has to start blocking with Morrow, Morrow can keep piling on the attacks, so it can swing it about in your favour very quickly. Belias as well, so with Morrow attacking multiple times, say your opponent's on 6 points of damage, and they've got 2 forwards, both at, say, 5k. Now, obviously, if they were to block the first time, Morrow would get to attack again. They'd block the second forward, and Morrow would then die, and you can't get through. Giving Morrow first strike means that he can get past all those forwards. He'll be a 10k first striker. Obviously, he'll have to still be on 6 points of damage, but he'll be a 10k first striker that can attack every time he breaks a forward. That's really good. And Nolan Vermilion Bird, let's see Zuyu. So maybe you've got a deck kind of themed towards having forwards that can attack multiple times. Maybe you even want to add some wind in there as well, and have Chilinka, because that'd be quite funny. So you got your Vermilion Bird, your Zuyu just breaking things, and Morrow breaking things, and Noel's like, yeah, I'm going to attack multiple times. And then you got Archangel to be like, I want to attack twice. So you play Chilinka. Oh, the fun we could have. Okay, and finally, one of my favourite characters from Final Fantasy IX, even though he's barely in the game, Black Waltz 3. So I just think the designs of them are really cool, and they are genuinely quite antagonistic. But when Black Waltz 3 is put from the field to the break zone, select one of the 3 following actions. Your opponent discards 1 card from their hand. Choose one... Sorry, I just realised it doesn't say his or her, it says their, which I think is... I don't know if it's the first time they've done it, but this is definitely the first Opus where they've done it. I've always wondered why they went for his or her rather than their. Makes a lot more sense. Anyway, sorry. Choose 1 Dull forward, deal it 7,000 damage. Choose 1 Ice summon in your break zone, add it to your hand. So he's got a lot of good modal effects. So Phoenix, again, being able to bring him in upright. So maybe your opponent's attacked with something, that forwards then become dull. You play your Phoenix, deal 2k to your opponent's forwards, bring in Black Waltz, you block with the Black Waltz. You'll obviously then block for 3k, so it's a total of 5k damage dealt to that forward, and then you can choose a dull forward, deal it 7,000 damage. So you will have dealt a total of 12k damage to this 1 dull forward. So it's a nice little party trick again, or maybe you just want to make your opponent discard, or you want to have your Black Waltz ready to attack next turn. Kefka and Snow. So you've got Snow in your backup lineup, you got Black Waltz 3, and you got Kefka, and you're ready to attack with Kefka. You attack, you dull something out of the way with Snow. You then break your Black Waltz 3, and you break one of your opponent's forwards. With Black Waltz 3, you then say, I'm going to make you discard. And then, once your opponent's forward is broken, you pay the 1 CP to get a card to hand through Kefka's ability. So, you've dulled something out of the way, you've broken something, you've made your opponent discard, and you've drawn a card. Pretty good for 1 forward attacking. Yazoo and Borghen. So maybe you want to have a kind of forward lineup, a bit smaller, but a forward lineup of things your opponent just doesn't want to get rid of because, say they've got a board wipe online, but they know that if they do, they're going to have to discard 2 cards, they're going to choose a character that has to be frozen as well. So, you know, you can have a kind of weird deck where it's like, they're not particularly offensive forwards, but you don't want to get rid of them either. Gilgamesh. So Black Waltz just keeps on coming back, just like in Final Fantasy IX. You just keep on attacking with Gilgamesh, bringing back your little 2 CPs. Obviously your opponent doesn't want to get rid of Black Waltz, but when they inevitably do, just use Gilgamesh to bring him back. And finally, Golbez. You couldn't say Black Waltz 3 without Golbez. And one of the good things about him as well is the fact that Golbez states that each of a different element and play them onto the field, their auto abilities will not trigger. So Black Waltz 3 doesn't have any auto abilities except for when he goes to the break zone, or when he's broken. Put from the field into the break zone. So obviously enter the field effects don't happen, but leave the field effects do, which makes them all the more offensive. So maybe you bring in a few forwards that have haste and can attack, but you want that one forward there to block, and he can block for quite a reasonable amount of damage as well. There we go, peeps. Thank you ever so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe to the videos, and it really makes a big difference to me. Also, follow me on Twitter. I use Twitter more than Facebook, but follow me on Facebook as well, because I do updates on there. More channel-oriented, less my opinions. Also, make sure to watch some of the older videos as well, and I'll see you in the next video.